Start now. Just give it 5 seconds. Okay.
Hi, welcome, and I'm going to apologize for this. the microphone. Hi, welcome to our presentation today. It is going to be about the Away from Home American Boarding School Stories exhibit that is across the hall. We're physically at the Trinity River campus here, and hopefully to tie in the exhibit is what we're looking to do. So this particular exhibit has been a collaboration between Trinity River Campus and Connect Campus. So my name is Kimberly Cox. I'm an associate professor of government at Connect Campus, so I mainly teach online. And I'll introduce you to the panel here in a moment. But first, just to get us started, I wanted to read a part of the summary from the exhibit information that we as the group initially received, because I think it's really powerful. So the United States government has operated off-reservation American Indian boarding schools from 1879 to the present. The history and student experiences at federally run boarding schools are complex and nuanced, varying by individual time period, tribal affiliation, and school. This is a hidden chapter in American history that continues to profoundly impact American Indian communities today. It is our shared history. The Indian boarding school system in the early 1800s began under the auspices of the Department of War, and these earliest boarding schools, called mission schools, were run by religious denominations with support from the federal government and were generally located within or near tribal communities. The Indian Wars, the various armed conflicts between the U.S. settlers and the Native Americans from the earliest contacts, fought mostly over land disputes, resulted in a legacy of poverty and disease as the Native people were relocated and confined to reservations. The Indian problem was a topic of national debate, and the founder of the Indian Rights Association, Herbert Welsh, stated in 1886 that his Christian reform movement wanted to deliver the Indian from the night of barbarism into the fair dawn of Christian civilization. Resolution of the problem was believed at the time to require eradication of Indian cultures. Education was seen as the tool to civilize the savages. The federal policy of forced assimilation was a war waged on children. American Indian boarding schools were created to change Native students. However, Native students, through their leadership and political involvement, eventually changed the schools. And there was a lot more to that, but I thought that ending piece is really powerful and really ties into the panel today. And so as we get started, I really just wanted to have each of our panelists introduce themselves really quick. So I'll start with Dora.
I'm Dora Brought-Plenty. I'm Standing Rock Sioux, Canadian Assiniboine, Alabama Coshada, and Black. I'm enrolled at Standing Rock Sioux Reservation, and I'm from the Turtle Clan. I'm a retired lab technologist, a retired teacher, and I'm an Indian artist. I do fashion design, paintings, dream catchers, medicine pouches. I have a book out on poetry, and I just stay busy with my art. It's my passion, and it's what saved me in the Indian boarding schools. So now I use it as a tool for myself to heal.
Hello. My name is Jody Boyce Yellowfish. I am Muskogee Creek, Oglala, Lakota, and Cherokee. I'm a product of the relocation program. I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas. I am the founder and chair of MMIW Texas Rematriate. MMIW is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. We help recover and help families find loved ones. I do a lot of different stuff in the city. I'm a commissioner with the Dallas Arts and Culture Advisory Board, and I'm also co-chair for the board for Dallas Truth Racial Healing and Transformation.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Gravel, and I am the program liaison for the American Indian Education with Fort Worth ISD. I've been there 16 years, and the last 6 years have been over the Indian Ed program. Thank you.
And I always forget to say this, and this is kind of part of my story, but I'm also Cherokee. So that's how I'm sitting up here moderating this particular panel. And I think that my story is I didn't learn a lot about my history as a Native American and as Cherokee until much later in my life, because my father just did not talk about it. And a lot of it ties into just some of the stories that we'll hear and some of the things the exhibit talks about. So Okay, so to get started, I really wanted to start with the first question. I want this to be conversational, so as anybody has something to add, please feel free to. But what past experiences, if any, have you had with the boarding school or separation experience? And then we'll go into what is the impact. But I want to start with Dora because you are a boarding school survivor.
Yes, I am an Indian boarding school survivor. I was taken from my grandparents in Cherry Creek, around Lillygo, Cherry Creek, at the age 6. But my training and my assimilation into white society started way before that. Around when I was 2.5 years of age, I was in the scoop. I was adopted off to a white family from the Methodist, Wesleyan Methodist Church in Rapid City, South Dakota. It was a church my mother and her sister had attended. When the family took me and adopted me, they moved to California. I wasn't there very long when I was sent home because I was what they called a half-breed. I am Native and Black mixed. So it was kind of a taboo to be a mix, especially with Black. It was bad enough being half white and half Indian, let alone Native and Black. So they sent me back home. And my father was in military, and my father never signed any papers. He was in the Ellsworth Air Force Base. So I think that was one of the reasons they had sent me back. And plus the fact I was born out of wedlock, but I don't think that mattered then. So once I was returned, I started in what was called the etiquette class, where the nuns and sisters from the Indian community center started teaching me how to, they said, eat proper, how to chew my food properly. They started taking and dressing me different, putting the pigtails in my hair, the frilly dresses, the anklets, and the patent leather shoes. And it was quite harsh and scary because of going through that at a young age. I developed an eating disorder because all they ever did was watch me eat. I was taken a lot to the Ellsworth Air Force Base to show people as they come in for the events there what they had done changing me. My father was there a lot. But I could not have any communication with him. But he did, he would wink at me to let me know everything was all right. But there was no conversation, nothing, no acknowledgement of him, nor myself, only that they had changed me. At Ford, they relocated my father to another Air Force base. Right before my 5th birthday, my mother was murdered. And I was awarded to the state, my sister and myself. And they took in, my family started passing me around to my other relatives as they were recognized as foster homes. And one of my cousins had taken me to the reservation where my grandparents lived, and I stayed there with them, and I was quite happy. To me, that was my safe haven. I learned a lot culturally. I learned that it was all right to just exist. And I started day school there because my kindergarten year I had done in Rapid City. 1st grade, I started day school there. And I remember my grandpa always taking me to school, and he said, "I will be back for you later." I said, "Okay." And it was routine that he would come later on that afternoon. But that morning, when I went into class, there was 2 men that walked into the school, the day school, and we're conversing with the teacher, and she pointed at me. And the next thing I knew, they grabbed me by my arms and took me to the car, and I don't remember the ride. I always say I think I was in shock because I know I didn't do anything wrong. But they had taken me to Pure Indian School, which I went there, like I said, first grade, and there was when my hell started as being an Indian boarding school survivor, because they cut my hair, poured this stuff in my hair that smelled like petrol, give me a small container after they had stripped me and told me to hit the showers. And I didn't know any rules or regulations. I didn't know anything. The treatment was very harsh. I got punished that day for asking questions after they had cut my braids off and thrown them in my face, stripped me naked in front of the people that were there. You know, it was hell. It was hell. So, you know, I'm an Indian boarding school survivor. They took my name away. My number was 199. And I used that up until I was 12, 13 years of age.
Yeah, I was curious about the significance of the numbers. And I mean, so did they call you by the number, or
Yes,
did you
199? We were beat and punished if we responded to our name in any time, any way. When I got to know some of the girls there, my nickname was Tiny Girl. And so they would call me that or call me Dolores. And if you respond, you'd get beat. A lot of times it was a way for them to manipulate you into using your name, because they put child against child. So that they had a system of where you could not even trust anybody, not even the other students there, let alone the matrons, the nuns, the preachers, you know, priests, teachers, nobody. You were there alone, and they made sure you were isolated all times. The only time I ever seen anybody come together and work together was there was some girls that were Crow and Blackfoot Indian girls helped and told me what to do and what not to do. They stuck up for me a lot because I was a very small child. They protected me from a lot of beatings from other students. And when we would go to the cafeteria to eat, if you did not eat the food they presented in front of you on a tray, you got beat and punished and forced to eat it. At that particular time when we were in the cafeteria, I would see other girls come and grab food, and they had done it to myself. Help grab food from your tray and eat it so that you would not get beat. It's small things like that that were very, very meaningful for myself. But, you know, it was a society that set you up for failure regardless of what you did when you did it. You got beat for everything and anything that you did.
Well, I noticed on your website, it was maybe an article I was reading, that you had a friend that tried to run away and they brought her back.
Yes.
And it was interesting to see that kind of child against child. I don't know if you can tell a little bit about that, because that was interesting.
Two of the girls that helped and protected me there, one was Lucille Walker. The other one, I will never forget her, Lucy Takes the Horse. When I had got there, like I said, they helped tell me and teach me what I should and shouldn't do, how I should fold my clothes, how I should make my bed. And everybody was looking forward to making the 100th day mark at the Indian boarding school, no AWOLs. Me being as small as I was, I didn't even know what AWOL meant. But I learned quickly. And I remember one day they said, we have some runners, runaways, and they were my two friends. And it was something that I had contemplated myself as a small child, but going outside, you don't know which direction to run, where to run, because you're in an isolated, you know, area, nothing there. And when I heard they ran, I was kind of happy for them, but I didn't know what happened to them. Some of the children there were angry because I think there was like maybe a celebration or something if we reached 100 days. And I remember us going to bed one night, and everybody was sleeping, and they used to use a hand bell to ring to wake us up for us to get in line, to us to go to the cafeteria, everything and anything. And it was during the night, I heard the bell ringing and everybody was saying, get up and get your hand towels. We had to take our hand towels and take it to the washroom and put it under hot water. And they was telling us to get in line. And I was watching a couple of the girls there with eye contact to the matrons, and she was nodding her head. And, you know, because being in situations like that, you become a people watcher and you watch for signals. And they were, you know, smiling and everything, putting open safety pins in the ends of their hand towels. And they said, everybody get in line. So we lined up on either side. And I saw when the matron brought the girls, my friend Lucy takes a horse and Lucille walked her out. And the matron walked up behind her and ripped the back of her nightgown open and shoved her to the line. And everybody started beating her with these hand towels. And I remember when she got in front of me, I had eye contact with her, looking at her. And I couldn't hit her. I had seen what the open safety pins had done to their backs. And the matron came and jerked me out of the line and took me right behind Lucille and pushed me right into the line also. And so I took the beating for not hitting my friend. But I never could ever hurt another child. And I will never. But I always remember that, and I never saw her after that, her or Lucille. And I always thought, well, they just sent them home because they're bad. They was bad girls. But growing up and understanding now what the mounds of dirt were outside of the area where I taught myself how to ice skate. There were mounds of dirt out there, but there was no construction any place at the Indian boarding school. And they were literally burying us out there. So it's harsh, but we're still here.
Yeah, I think that story of resilience is kind of I mentioned that at our reception, that's the word that keeps coming to mind to me is the resilience, considering the history. And I know another thing on your site that I saw that I wanted to encourage people. I know you have cards, so go to Dora's site. It's fantastic. But you have on your site the Federal Indian Boarding School Investigation Report and information about that, and then also to a link to the YouTube narration of it. And I thought that was those. If you haven't looked at it, and if you don't like to read the legalese piece of it, the narration is fantastic. So I encourage that. And also kind of because it is. I mean that report's not that old. I mean.
No. And, you know, a lot of people think it happened a long time ago. My mother, her siblings went to Carlisle. And I went to Pierre Indian School and Eagle Butte Indian School. My daughter, she's 53, my eldest daughter, went to Indian boarding school in Oklahoma. And it's not that long ago. And in Chamberlain, South Dakota, I taught there at the public school. There's still an Indian boarding school there to date. It's called the St. Joseph's Indian School. And they go around the reservations and collect the Native children there to go to school there. You know, there's still 2 open schools in Oklahoma that I know of. So they are still functioning.
And that ties into the thing we were talking about just right before the 60s scoop. And I think I'm guessing like me, you know, and learning even about, you know, my family's background when I didn't know what the 60s scoop was. And even though in my background, I went to my graduate school was in Oklahoma City and I worked for Oklahoma Indian Child Welfare up there, because like I said, you know, for the Indian services up there. And we did ICWA cases within the tribal courts. And, you know, there was the Harlan Brackeen case recently that the Supreme Court, you know, just last year, right, 2023, I think that's right, heard. But, you know, even though I'd done some work and knew about the cases, the 60s scoop, that term was very new to me. So I wondered if you'd, you know, talk about that for a second.
Yeah, that was when I was adopted off, and within my family, within the Brought Plenties, the Silks, we had at least 5 of our children from my family taken and adopted off. I've since met some of them, and I always feed them information about our relatives, because you're cut off from everything, everybody. You don't know. And you know, the BIA have set these programs up along with the government, and it's not fun. They strip you of your identity. And a lot of people don't even know, you know, until their young adulthood, that they've been adopted, or if they do know, they don't know where to start looking for their cultural background. But that's what it was set up, you know, and designed, is as well as the Indian boarding schools. And I think there was like 9 programs set up to simulate the Native children. I've been in every program that I know of that the BIA set up. In the last one, you know, I've been through the relocation program. They sent me to California. And so I've been through the SCOOP, the the Indian boarding school program, the Indian neighborhood youth program, the relocation. In the last one I went through, my auntie put me through along with the priest again at the Methodist Church, and the school counselor was the Indian education program, which I came here to go to college. So, yeah, it's terrible.
And that's a good segue into Jody and the work that she does. And kind of the same question, because I know, you know, we've had a little bit of a discussion too about your experience, you know, with separation and all. And if you can just kind of talk a little bit about that and its impact.
Yeah, so personally, me and my life and my experience, as a young person, as a child, as a teenager, I didn't know the deep history of what our people went through with boarding schools. My experience was completely different. I'm Lakota, which is from South Dakota, but I'm also Creek and Cherokee, and those are tribes from Oklahoma. And so I was familiar with my cousins and my sisters going to boarding schools and loving their experience. So I saw the change. I wasn't aware of how horrific the history was, but my experience was I wanted to go. Like I didn't want to be. I wanted an escape from being othered in a city setting, you know, from being a part of relocation and being different. And if my sister wasn't in my school, I was usually the only American Indian student in the school in Dallas. You know, I lived in Oak Cliff my whole life, West Dallas area, and that was often the case. So when I got to see my older sisters attend boarding schools and get to have these healthy, strong bonds with our cousins and things like that, like that's what I wanted. You know, they went to the Choctaw Run boarding school, Jones Academy, in Hartstone, Oklahoma, and also the Creek Run boarding school in Eufaula, Oklahoma. And I saw all these things, and that's what I wanted. So my experience was different, but I've mentioned this to Kimberly. It was different because my parents and grandparents didn't talk about boarding school. My grandfather, he left Pine Ridge, South Dakota when he was a teenager and never went back. And so my mother and her siblings, they grew up with that disconnect. You know, my father graduated Haskell Institute. I also graduated Haskell Indian Nations University, which was a military-run boarding school. One of the first ones, like on the level with Carlisle. That's how it started. You know, you hear "Kill the Indian, Save the Man." It started at Haskell. You can look at photos of that upon the entranceway into the campus. So my experience going to Haskell is a little different too. You know, there's a big pride in attending Haskell, because what seems to have happened is the opposite of what was wanted. You know, these things to kill the Indian, save the man. When times changed and things changed and they were run by Native people in different communities, like things started to change. It was a way of kind of reclaiming who you were and what they did before. And Haskell especially, I mean, it's a blessing. You're very fortunate to go and learn from people and learn your culture and reconnect and things like that. But also in the background, you know, we can see where the old jail used to be. We can see that there are handcuffs in the museum. We can see that there's a cemetery. You're walking to class and you see the cemetery where there are 100 headstones there of students that didn't make it out. and we're walking past the jail to go to classes and things like that. And so my experience is different, how I learned everything. We have sacred sites to us within the campus. There are places where people hold ceremonies and go sweat lodge and have night meetings. And being healthy is a part of Native lifestyle. You run to clear your mind, you run to think, things like that. And we used to walk through the Haskell wetlands all the time. And the stories that we were taught as students was that there's babies out there too that tried to run away and didn't make it away. And so you're going to class and bettering yourself and trying to better your people, but that's in the back of your mind. You literally see it, the reminders all the time. So it's like, even if, like with my personal story, I didn't experience this harsh reality, it still shaped my reality. I didn't live through it, but it shaped my grandparents and my parents in ways that I didn't understand until I was able to start to connect and understand and teach myself about these things. And, in regards to the work that I do now, I was kind of thrust into being a activist and advocate and a person that spoke in these kind of settings, like as a teenager. And I've been doing this since I was a teenager. And I feel like, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be able to share my own experience and help people understand. And that really shaped what I wanted to do as an adult. I have a social work background, things like that, but I've always just been somebody that can gain trust in my community. And with that, I felt like I have to help people. And so dealing with the crisis that is missing and murdered Indigenous people, I felt, I know enough to help families in this crisis situation. If somebody goes missing or they need to find somebody, that was our goal. But we get called upon for domestic violence situations, for mental health crisis, things like that. And I feel like things like boarding school and relocation and separation still are shaping our existence. Growing up with that separation and being disconnected, because that's what separation does. You're disconnected from your culture and your ancestral homelands and your language. And if you don't have things like language, you don't have ceremony, you don't have song, you don't have these things. And, I grew up hearing people say, like, if you don't have your Indian name, you can't go to heaven, basically, right? Or creator don't know you, things like that. And so I'm like, but that's not my fault. I don't have that. And I would have to tell people these things. It's like, my dad knows things that I don't know, and he doesn't share everything. And if I ask now that we're older, he's much older, like, he'll say a little more, and I'm just like, why didn't I learn this, sooner? But all of that disconnect really pushed me to want to connect more. And I really pulled my family into wanting to learn more about our culture and being okay with learning as an adult. And I feel like that's something, this separation that happened with boarding school has really, it's done a number on our people in that they feel like because they're an adult and they're learning that they're behind in some way, or they're not worthy, or they're not good enough, and things like that. And that's something that we see in the work that we do, helping families that are looking for somebody. They don't know if they should ask this Native organization because maybe they're not active in the community. Things like that, we see that all the time. And so ways that we combat this crisis is simple things like our kinship gatherings. We have auntie time and uncle time just because we know people feel disconnected. But if they feel like they have family and they feel like they have community, maybe they'll reach out for help. Maybe we can help guide them to meet other people, somebody from their tribe, somebody in social work, maybe they need some help. I mean, we have yet to work a case that it isn't every generation in that home. We've had cases where it's a teenager, a parent, and a grandparent that have all been sexually assaulted or kidnapped or trafficked. That's our reality. And this disconnect and things like that, like, shape that existence, push us into trying to self-medicate and soothe these things that, like that are just horrible to deal with, hard to heal from. And oftentimes, when somebody's recovered and they go back home, that's just the start of their healing journey. It's hard to kind of explain to folks what we do, because there's so many levels to what we're helping with. Sometimes people just want to talk. People want to connect and learn a little bit. And I feel like that's some of the biggest part of our work. Almost the heaviest part of our work is helping the folks that are in a safe situation, but they need more. They need some help. And yeah, I feel like that's where that separation really shapes our work.
Well, and I have to thank Jody, and I don't think I've done this properly, because I think whenever I reached out, you and Dora were the first people I reached out for this particular event and all that we were putting together. But I was one of those people who's very afraid to, or very nervous, I would say, about connecting with the Native American community, because it was, I remember when I didn't become enrolled in the Cherokee, as a citizen until I was exactly where I was at TCU, and I was about to graduate. And my dad said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about this." So a lot of, again, he just wouldn't talk a lot, but when he did, but that there is that huge disconnect from community. And so I have to thank you guys. So that's exactly what happened to me when I reached out to you, is that feeling of, okay. And then it just is kind of snowballed from there, and I keep meeting more people, and it's fantastic. So I just want to say that.
And I wanted to add, Jody's talking about Jones Academy.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter was taken there when she was 13 at the Jones Academy in Oklahoma. And she said, "Mama, the first thing I had to learn is how to fight, because I got in so many fights and I was even afraid to sleep." And so you can see the big difference of then and she's 53. So it wasn't that long ago, at the same boarding school, two different things that happened to two different people. And you are disconnected, because when I went to Indian boarding school, I knew my language, but we got beat for that. They used to make me stand in the hallway at night and hold one brick in each hand and kneel out there until the patrons felt they had had enough, or that I had had enough. They would hit me on my backside with rulers and tell me to straighten up for speaking my language. And today now I've had people come up and say, "Why don't you know your language? You're Lakota, you should know your language." Well, you wouldn't remember too much if it was beat out of you. They told me, "We're going to beat you until you forget everything." And they pretty much did that. But I have dreams now where my language is coming back slowly, one word at a time. I can't carry a whole sentence, but I know what the words mean. And so I tell my children, which are all adults, and my grandchildren, say this word, say it, and understand it, and know what it means. And so, it is coming back, but you do have that disconnect when you go through these programs. Every time I went through a program, my own relatives had told me, "You're not like us anymore. You're different. You act different. You dress different. You talk different." And when I was a baby, they started changing. My own family started changing me because I was Black and Native. They bathed me in turpentine and lard to bleach me out, because of their shame and because I was a half-breed. And when I came here to go to college, I was telling the other students the other day, I was 21 years of age walking into Eckerdrug buying Porcelana bleaching cream. And I had asked myself at that time, "What are you doing?" But you're so used to the abuse that you start abusing yourself without even thinking about it. And my eldest daughter said, "Mama, I remember what that smelled like." And I said, "I do too." But it's things like that that make you different, and you don't know. You're disconnected, culturally disconnected. Spiritually, when you're there, they're forcing you into organized religion. Since I left, I have never gone into another organized religious establishment, unless it was out of respect for somebody that was participating there and had invited me. Otherwise, I don't go. It's something I don't practice. I went back to what I was taught as a child, and I am from the Turtle Clan, and I am very proud of who I am. So there is differences in the treatments.
And that's a good, well, I'm gonna try to segue it into Elizabeth and ask her, because I know that, you know, there are those of us who have children who now are going through the school systems. And I don't know, you know, we can kind of dovetail this into the second question I had was, what work do you presently do for the community? But is there any impact from this history we've been talking about on the kids going through now and their families going through now?
Yes, disconnect, that's what my students are dealing with. They're away from their culture. They don't know their culture. They don't know what it is to be Native American. And so our program facilitates with community partners, with elders who come and volunteer with our students to teach them the dance, the music, the language. I have a parent committee that comes out and helps us with our summer camp, and we have language center there, and we work closely with a lot of organizations out of the Dallas area that come in and help our students with their cultural needs.
Yeah, because I know there's a meeting tonight with the parent group, which I'm going to try to come to finally. But yeah, and I mean, you know, because I noticed with the I'll just hold this back a little bit. You know, the statistics I was looking at for Native Americans that graduate from high school were pretty dismal, and even more so that go into college. And I didn't know, and I know the answer to this, but do you focus on helping the Native American community within the Fort Worth ISD and getting that education and going on to college?
Yes, we track attendance and grades as part of our federal grant with Fort Worth ISD. And so if the students is struggling with attendance, we reach out to the family to see what kind of issues they're dealing with to make sure that the student is in class. Or if they're failing and they need tutoring, we offer tutoring for our students as well. And just a sense of community, helping one another within families, elders, and students and teachers.
And that's one thing I've noticed, and I don't know if all the tribes do this, but with the Cherokee tribe too in particular, I've noticed in the last just 2 years an uptick in community outreach and language programs and history programs coming in. And I didn't know, you know, if you all experience the same thing, if you see the different Native American communities working to bring these programs to communities that aren't, you know, we're not, you know, I'm not in Tahlequah, for example. Is that something you guys see?
Yes, there are definitely more programs for native languages. Within the district, we do have tablets that have apps for the various languages that do have apps for. And during the summertime, our students get to utilize those for research.
Which I just think it's really neat, all that they're doing. And this kind of goes into the next question for the panel is, I really wanted you guys, once we talked about the history, to also thinking of that idea of resilience and what work do you presently do in the community, and kind of highlighting your work that you're doing now. And we'll start with Dora again.
I go out and do speaking events like this to different colleges or to libraries, or I've done one at the Holocaust Museum, a short one down at the Dallas Art Museum. And for me, it's all about bringing awareness. It's an educational platform for me to educate people, not only Native people, about what happened to us, what broke us down, but to educate all people and to have compassion, understanding for us, and also respect. Like I said, I do my art. It's something I used in the Indian boarding school. Very quick, very early on when I first got there, because number one, I seen that the teachers liked the fact that I knew how to draw. And so I used it in my own way. And this is sad to say, as a 6-year-old, knowing how to manipulate the teachers there, but I did. It saved me from getting beat. If I did drawings for them, drawings of people, a hand, a foot, a tree, a leaf, a small animal, something they could use from me to teach the rest of the students. It kept me from getting beat and hit with that ruler or that strap. And so that's what I did. I used it to save myself in the Indian boarding schools. And now when I was teaching, I use it as a way to heal now, to heal myself. In a lot of ways. I mean, through my book here, that my book of poetry, my art is in there. I design clothes now, upcycle clothes, which I've started, and it's not I'm not the first one to do it, but I started my own red handprint line in memorial of my mother and my niece that were murdered for the MMIW. My mom was murdered when I was 4, turning 5. I'm the first one in my family to go to college. My niece was right after myself going to the University in Nebraska. She was Miss Pahasapa, Miss Black Hills. She was murdered. They found her face down in a ditch when she was coming home for winter holiday. And they did no investigation, nothing. It was our family that was able to bring her home and give her a proper cultural burial. So it's these things that I continue to work on because MMIW, it was happening way back then. Them taking us to Indian boarding schools was trafficking. They molested, raped us, abused us in any way they could. So it's been happening all these years. And so it's my way of always remembering that it has happened to me personally in my family. And with the Indian boarding schools, also with Orange Shirt Day, it has touched my family in so many ways. So I continue to share that. And I can remember teaching elementary and looking out at the children. I taught art and library science, and I would think to myself, how can somebody take a child and do that to them, to hurt them in so many ways? But it happened. I don't see how anybody could have done it, but they did. It's not something I would do. But, because of all we went through, now we have generational trauma. I'm trying to continue to heal myself, but I have to help heal my children also, because we have that breakdown. When your child comes and says, Mama, when I was little, you were not a good mom. You were abusive. And I at first I was appalled. Not me. I fed you. I clothed you. I made sure you went to bed and got plenty of rest. I made sure you got good grades. But where's the love and the affection that child deserves? I didn't even know how to love myself, let alone love a child. And so I had to learn. It's something I continue to learn. And now I'm healing myself and helping to heal my children. And they're learning to heal also. We're walking through the trauma together because I have grandchildren. And my youngest grandson knows everything and anything about what his grandmother and great-grandfather and great-grandmother went through. And he knows, and he started learning at age 9. And so it's the generational trauma now, and the lack of knowledge that was stripped from us. So I continue to do that and to share with natives, non-natives, because if people know, they'll understand us a lot better through the traumas we've gone through. And I'm a recovering alcoholic and drug addict. And I've been clean now for over 13 years, but still I went through that, which my mother went through. Some of my family members went through. It was something that hit all of us in some way in our families. So it's walking through all that trauma and that healing. But I know how to love myself today. I know how to love my children and my grandchildren. And for that, I am very thankful.
And I know that what you describe is very common in a lot of families, the drug abuse, the alcohol, the lack of being able to care.
There's molestation, rape in our family.
Yeah. It's just, it's a story that you see a lot. And I think that's a good segue to Jody and highlighting the work that you do. In any specific examples of some of the things you do or that you want to share?
We do a lot of different things besides just casework. We do a lot of education in settings like this, and universities, different organizations want this education for themselves as well. And this education, we go really in depth, within our education, what we do when we present, we talk about Matoa Aka, who is everyone knows as Pocahontas. Everybody refers to her as the first MMIW case, as the first trafficked person, but people know her because of the twisted story that Disney tells, and that helps people understand how long we've been dealing with things in the depths of manipulating the history to, favor the people that weren't so great, and that's a big part of what we do is we try to talk about a truthful, history, and it's not about calling people out. We ask people, check your privileges, and we don't just mean race. There are a lot of things. And even as younger people, we ask people, to check that privilege of you have the words to express yourself. Our elders oftentimes don't. It's a new thing. I'm 42 years old and I'm raising children now, and I haven't seen just really healthy parenting in my life. And so, a lot of folks that are of that age now raising families, we're trying to break cycles and we're trying to do things different, and it's all new. It's all so new. But we see that a lot with the families that we do try to help and the families we do connect with. And we try to normalize these conversations, that it is okay to acknowledge that you're disconnected, and that means, as an urban native, yeah, maybe you didn't grow up going to stomp dance or powwows, or you don't know all of these cultural things or the language or the songs, but it's okay. And you can take your time, and that's some of the things that I feel like are really important. Like just like the conversation of, you sharing your tribal connections and things like that, that happens a lot, and we have to say that it's okay. You do have community, maybe, and that's something really unique to the Dallas area too, being a relocation site. There are many tribes represented at one community function. We're very unique in that situation, as like one of the reservations in Texas, like Alabama Coshada, you just have Alabama Coshada people when you have an event there, a handful of folks visiting. But you come to an event in the Dallas area, you could have 100 tribes represented. I'm 3 tribes in my home. I think we're 7 different tribes in my home, and it's a beautiful thing, but it's also it comes with a lot of work that needs to help oneself be okay with it, be okay with being othered and a little different. And so we really try to normalize in spaces that we host as an organization, because we don't just help, it's MMIW, but we help all people, and we help with a lot of different contributing factors. Trying to help people heal, trying to normalize the conversations around CPS and ICWA and things like this are a big part of what we do as well. All of the members in our organization, we've dealt with that. Maybe not all, maybe not all of our members, but a big majority. We've had to navigate ICWA and CPS in my home. I don't really know a family that hasn't done that, but we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it enough to say it's really easy if you're in this emergency kinship situation, just to sign this paper, when you're at the hospital. But we'll have grandparents like, whoa, like, I don't want to sign anything, but it could save somebody's life. If we can normalize the conversations around things like that. So I think like that healing is so multifaceted with all of the work that happens today.
Yeah, with Elizabeth, do you have a couple of examples of some programs you're working on also to really help these communities and to help the families and the children?
It's just getting the families together. Now we have students from kinder to 12th grade. We have 332 identified students district-wide, representing 42 different tribes. And that seems a lot, but within a district of 62,000, it's really not a lot. And when we have our weekend and summer activities, that brings the kids the Native students that are normally not interacting with each other, to get together from different tribes, from different backgrounds, and learn one another.
Yeah, I noticed there's one. My daughter's not a senior yet, but the one you sent out recently on the rising seniors, that looks really interesting. I'm gonna have her do it next year if y'all have it available. Okay, and so kind of to look forward and think about. So I was watching our clock up here, but I wanted to ask you all, and this is a question and a curiosity I had. I'll be honest, this question was more I wanted to know, and I'm hoping everybody else does too. But what is the future outlook for the work you're doing in the community in general? So, looking forward, what do you see looking forward for the work that you're doing? Do you see it, getting better, getting more support,
What I want to see is that the students that are running through the program right now gain the knowledge of their culture and come back to our camp and pour into the students, the younger students. In previous years, I have had a Cherokee family who a parent was a teacher with the school district, and I had mother, father, and daughters come back in, do basket weaving and pottery and archery for our students, and that's kind of what I want to see with our students in our program. So they'll graduate and learn about their culture and want to come back and pour into the younger students.
And what about MMIW? What are they working on for the future, and what's the outlook?
So for our work, I think our biggest thing is to have our nonprofit status and be fully functioning so that we can apply for grants and get funding that can help on a bigger level outside of just casework, where we help fund gas money, food, printing costs, flyer distribution, things like that. We want to be able to help a family beyond that without having it be a fundraiser. It be we helped a family and we had a call out for diapers and baby clothes and things, and we want to be able to be established enough that we don't have to limit how we can help. And so we have goals of different educations and curriculums, and a major goal is our relationship with police departments. It's not always the greatest. We help people. Currently we have to teach people in a city how to file a missing persons report, who to call, who does this, who does that, changing things like that. We're educating police departments, and I did a presentation to the FBI. They couldn't tell me how many reservations were in Texas. They couldn't tell me this person is over this region and this region. I'm like, oh, so you covered this reservation. There are no reservations in Texas, I was told by an FBI agent last year. So education is always key. We're trying to normalize that, the letters behind your name and the certificates and degrees you have doesn't make you an expert. You're not going to tell me that you know how to work a case better than me when it comes to dealing with an Indian family. If you don't know the culture, you can't go in. You don't know who to talk to. You don't know what to ask. You don't know why they're not going to look you in the eye. You don't know why they're not getting the adequate health care. There are things like that we are working to continuously be in spaces like this to connect and to educate on a level where, and thanks to Scott, I do a lot of stuff at TCU, and I love that university space because the people there at universities are so powerful. Students have so much power, and it's just like they're at the cusp of going out into the world. And I hope that they hear these stories so that they can take these stories into their work. As a nursing student or a doctor, somebody that's going to work with the public. You need to know who you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that's coming up is there is a ICWA committee being formed as well, so that we are knowledgeable enough to have access to, say we have a Cherokee child and we know exactly who to call from that tribe, or Caddo or Alabama Coshada, whoever. That's what the goal is, and we want to be a part of that because we see that happen. We see a lot of balls being dropped when it comes to custody and where's this child going, and we want to somehow help that separation so that we don't continue what we're seeing now. What we're talking about being disconnected, we hope that separation isn't going into the next generation as well.
Personally, you know, outside of MMIW2, we do a lot of things, or I do a lot of things in art spaces and with arts and culture. And I was told I was the first American Indian person on the board for the city of Dallas. It's 2023, and I cannot believe that. And I'm having conversations about Indian arts and crafts laws and language, and how, you know, I don't see what I do as an art, my beadwork or my dance or singing, anything like that. And I've had conversations in spaces about culture. You know, it's my culture. It's not my art per se. So it's like there's so many conversations had, and I think that's the bulk of any work that's happening in Indian country today, urban, reservation, anywhere. I feel like just the very basic education of who we are and how we're still here. It's weird to say out loud sometimes that people are like, oh, I didn't know this or that. Like, I mean, an FBI agent told me there are no reservations, and I'm like, no, there's one a few hours from us. Like, this is what we do. We have cases there. You know, it's like, now I know we couldn't have called the FBI if we needed y'all, because I didn't even know a reservation was there. So that's I think the bulk of the work is the education.
And I'll ask Dora the same question. Any projects you're working on or things you're looking forward to for the work that you do?
Well, like I said, I always try to work through my art. I always tell people it's healing for me to work with people, to heal myself. I'm healing myself through them. Because the more people that know about Native American art for myself, it is healing. It's a way for me to share who I am and who Native people are, to not, you know, of all different tribes. And like Jody said, I myself am from 3 different tribes. I know that within my immediate family, we almost have the United Nations. And I was telling Kimberly, the majority of the men in my family, within the Brought Plenty Silk Twist family, the majority of the men are military men, because we were in an area where it was one of the 3 largest SAC Air Force bases in Rapid City. So yes, our women married military men. And I was also saying, you know, with me sharing the history and the tragedies and my truths of what I went through is a platform of education, and to bring awareness to what really happened to us. But to let them know we're still here. It is all very, very healing. When I first got here to Dallas, Texas, I saw the name Dallas Intertribal. And I went looking for that, because I said, well, it's intertribal, it has to do with Indians. And I went looking, and I found a woman. I was walking up some steps, and was Bernice Johnson asked me, "Are you Native?" And I said, "Yes, I'm Standing Rock Sioux." And she said, "Can I help you?" And so I started talking with her and telling her, I saw the name. I wanted to know what was going on. I talked with her for hours. I got hired as an Indian artist there. She told me it was all right to be Indian again, and I believed her. I was always too poor to wear or even afford Indian regalia. She dressed me in her own garments at times, which she was Seminole, Kiowa, and Choctaw. And I loved that woman like a mother I never had. She taught me a lot, she and her husband, and her family. And I clung very close to her while I was in college. So I've always been with the Dallas Intertribal off and on. And I've been for mental health. They have a mental health department there, as well as clinic and dental. Jody's sister works there. And it's always been home for me. I've been in mental health, like I said, since 1971. To date, I go to therapy every week. It's my way of gifting myself into being able to heal now. So I continuously do that. And also Jody had sent us a link, my daughter and myself, about getting on CAP, the community art program. So I get to go out and teach natives, non-natives, every age possible about art. I teach cultural arts. I also do slave art because of my father. His last name was Bishop, and we all know that was a slave name. So I do that very respectfully with any of my arts. And so I stay pretty close to what I know and what has been healing for me. And I love sharing my art with the garments. It's been fantastic. I've been working with another organization also as a food rescue, but is also a skateboard park. It's called Four Down. The two founders there are wonderful. They work with the community. It's all on Sundays, Wednesdays, it's all volunteer. We go out there and do food rescue from Whole Foods. And we separate it, make sure it's good quality food. What is bad, we have a landfill right there that they are doing gardening, micro gardening. So it's all right there at the facility, and it's a skateboard park. And so it's there for young children of all nationalities, adults, all nationalities, to come and skateboard at a safe haven. And I did a painting, a mural for them on the food walk-in cooler. That was my rendition to represent my grandchildren that are Two-Spirit. And it's still there to date. And it's a wonderful place. So I work with them. I work with CAP. I work with Dallas Intertribal every now and again to help teach how to do ribbon skirts, ribbon shirts. I've made drums with them there. I participated in the beadwork, which Michael Tonkmate taught. And it's something I learned as a very small child, how to do peyote stitch. And that's all I know about beading peyote stitch, but I figured it worked for me then, so, but it's all the different types of art that I do that I'm able to share and continue to share and heal myself as well as help heal others. So it's very important.
And then I guess, and I asked Dora to read a poem here just real quick, and but I wanted to ask Elizabeth and Jody too, and then Dora, where can we find out more information about the organizations that you represent? Sorry, whoever wants to go first.
For MMIW Texas Rematriate, we can be found on Facebook, on Instagram. We share all of our missing persons flyers on our social media. We share, we work in coalition with about 10, 12 other MMIP groups just in Oklahoma. We're connected with different ones, so we share flyers from all over the place. But also we share our events that we host, our kinship gatherings, our auntie time, uncle time, Two-Spirit time. And we will be hosting our second community gathering, which is a mini powwow on May 4th. May is, and specifically May 5th, is National Day of MMIW Awareness. And there's events the whole month long all over the country. But our biggest one is May 4th. And that's open to the public at Union Coffee in Cedar Springs, that area. Something y'all can look for too. We turn the skyline red every May 5th. Downtown skyline, we turn that red. We do different things. We do things at City Hall that month as well. But our social media is very active. Our messages are checked constantly. Our Gmail is checked constantly. We're open for any kind of inquiries, but we check it constantly for families that may need help in a situation. So we guide everybody. Our focus is Indigenous people, but we've helped all kinds of communities with what to do. Yeah, our social media is most active. Also with like the CAP program. If you follow the Office of Arts and Cultures for the City of Dallas, you can find all of those things. There's always micro grants, programs to sign up for, to learn, but also to participate and be on the level of like Miss Dora teaching the community and getting compensated for your time, which it should be that way. And also Dallas Truth Racial Healing Transformation. Their website's very active. Their social media is very active. Doing a lot of great work there. And yeah, everyone's social media is very active, and that's how you can connect with everyone.
And then Elizabeth, if we have families that, especially with Fort Worth ISD, how can they get in contact with you?
We do have a Facebook page as well. We also have on the district webpage, if you go to departments and look under American Indian Education, there's links for educators, for information, do's and don'ts about teaching Native American culture, and there's information for students, scholarships listings, and tribal listings for families, where they can have both local and across the country information on their tribes.
And then I'll ask Dora the last thing is, how can they find out about your information, and then ask you to share a poem as to wrap this up here.
We just brought up a new website, which is broughtplenty.com. And there is still the, I think for the Brought Plenty nonprofit, when we first started 4 years ago, my daughter and son together, we got together and got donations and got a ground penetrating radar machine, which is, they will go anywhere to any tribe to help search for the remains of the children from the Indian boarding schools. It was very heartbreaking and a reality for me when I found out about the first 215 children being found at Camp Luke's. I had told my daughter they found them. And then my journey began. So we have the ground penetrating radar, and we're always reaching out to people. There is fear that they will shelve the remains like they did at Carlisle Indian School for 12 years. But Pine Ridge, I think I'm wanting to say also Rosebud finally got some of the children back a couple years back. But there is hundreds and thousands of children still out there waiting to be found. So we have the website up, and we still have the ground penetrating radar machine, and 4Down is its own nonprofit organization. So you can just go to 4DWN. And then like we mentioned with the CAP, I have a profile there where I'm able to come out and teach and share. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate. On my business card or on my website, my phone number is there. You know, I answer all the questions, any questions you have. Me being a former teacher, I say all questions are good questions. You know, so if you want to know, ask. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I know I put you on the spot today to read your poem. I just think it's a really beautiful way to wrap up our talk here, and so I'll ask you to read from, and you can get this on her website.
And I would like to say, anything and everything that I have done, I have never done it by myself. It's with our Native people, always being with me, standing beside me, working through me. Whether they're ancestors or they're with me today, present. It's never about myself. It's about us. Everything and anything. With the book of poetry that I have out, it wasn't. I wrote the poems. I did the art, but I didn't put it out there and put it together. My son did. Another family effort. My daughter gathered them. Said, "Mom, what are you doing with all these?" So. Now I have a book of poetry from 1976, I want to say, up into present, that I didn't know I was carrying around and saving. So here we go. It's I know myself. So who are you, standing there, head held high, shoulders stern and straight? So who do you think you are? Strolling unclammably down the road, Stride with pride, we hold no candle to high. I know myself. I am strong, standing straight, head held high, shoulders down or thrown back to stern attention. I know myself. I can stroll graciously down the path, stride with pride, candle held high to guide my way. I know myself, my energy, my pride, my destination, my direction, my pleasures, my temptations. Do you yourself recognize yours? Who are you within yourself who are you within yourself too afraid you'll be seen? Or who are you really? And I told Kimberly, I remember this particular one because it was after I had moved from the Dallas Fort Worth area to Chamberlain, South Dakota. And I had always hid myself in different societies within the Dallas Fort Worth area. When I came here, people used to say, you're like a chameleon. I hid within the Hispanic community for a very long time. And then I hid within the Middle Eastern community. My husband is Middle Eastern. And people always told me, you look just like us. I said, yeah, I know. And so that was a safe place for me to hide. But when that relationship started to end, I started to come and awaken myself to who I really was. And I started to recognize and then ask my own family members, who are you? Who do you want to be? And then it's another part of my healing. So I understand and I know exactly when I wrote that.
Yeah, it's funny because I brought the book to ask Dora if I could, if she'd read one. She had one in her bag too, so it was serendipitous. And I just want to thank the panel and everybody for coming today. We appreciate it so very much. This is an important topic. We do have more programming throughout the rest of the month. The exhibit is here in the Trinity River Library through the end of February. Our next speaker will be on Monday. You'll have to help me with the time, Dr. Northrup. 11:30. We're going to be showing Sousa on the Res in this room, the same room here, just across from the Trinity River Library. If you're online and you want to join us, we'll be showing it's about a 25-minute movie on the brass and marching bands, and it's really interesting. And we'll have beamed in, because he's not going to be here physically, Dr. John Troutman from the Smithsonian. He's a music curator and recently Grammy nominated for his work. So I'm really excited about that one coming up. We have some wonderful programming throughout the month, but I think Scott will be here. So please join us and help us tell all your friends. We want the public to come, students to come see this. And thank you very much.
And I wanted to commend you on your exhibit over there. I've looked everywhere and anywhere I could. The exhibit over there is wonderful. It's heartbreaking. I'm able to see about Carlisle where my relatives went to, but there is also a photograph of Pure Indian School. It did set me back up and take the wind out of me, but it's reality.
Yeah.
And so I want to commend you. It's wonderful. Your exhibit's wonderful.
Yeah, Dr. Northrup is the one who brought that exhibit, so we have to thank her. But it's beautiful. So if you haven't been, please do.